knowing that you want to be a mom versus like facing the reality of what does that mean to actually become a mom. I think a lot of us as women kind of get to that point in our life where we're just like, well, when will we have this like feeling of like, okay, yes, I'm ready? Because I think that's like the image that's always kind of given to us. At least that was my expectation. That was like, oh, I'll just wake up one day and I'll just like know, oh, it's time to be a mom, or I'll feel ready and feel so confident and just like know that this is the right time and season of my life. And I'll never, of course, second doubt my decision. But that was not my experience. And I think that a lot of other women that get to this point where they're like thinking like, okay, I feel this pressure. Like I know that it's something that I want, but I also, I don't feel this overwhelming sense of like knowing for certain, like, yes, I've made up my mind, will that ever change? My husband and I waited so long to have kids. Like we got married in our early 20s, and it was probably about 28 before I was like, okay, we're finally at the point where it kind of makes sense for us to have kids. But to me, it was more like a checklist of like, these are all of the things that I want to have accomplished. These are the things that I want to make sure that we like do to be financially prepared. But then when it came down to becoming a mom, there was so many years prior to that experience that was like, okay, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. Like that it was this weird juxtaposition in my mind that I was like, wow, we spent so much time and effort trying to make sure we didn't get pregnant. And then all of a sudden overnight, we're like, okay, I guess it's time. There was like this almost like, oh my goodness, are we ready for this moment where even when we had made the decision that, like, okay, yep, we're going to start trying, we're going to pull the goalie, that it was like, okay, am I going to regret this? Like, are we really ready? And I think personally, until you actually make the decision and you start taking action on that decision, that you won't ever feel ready. And I also kind of think that it's normal that to even kind of question that all throughout, like once you become pregnant and, becoming a mom. And even within that first couple of years, I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, am I fully equipped to do this? The answer is you're not. Nobody is. Am I going to mess up my child? Am I going to be a good mom? Like, how do I manage? How do I do all of this? So let's go ahead back to the like making the decision of actually being ready to have kids. So for me, like I mentioned, like we waited for a really long time. So I was 28, I think, when we started trying for kids. And I always had this plan in the back of my head that I would get pregnant very easily, very quickly. Like both of our parents, like I have 5 siblings, my husband has 5 siblings. So like it was just the expectation that as soon as we start trying, then it's just automatically going to happen, and it's going to happen really fast. So I have to feel very sure that this is the decision that we're making. Like to me, it was like, okay, as soon as we pull the goalie, I'm going to wind up pregnant. It's a huge responsibility. And I wanted to make sure that I was really ready, in addition to like my husband also being very ready, very on board with bringing a child into the world and caring for said child in a manner that we felt capable as parents and as adults to do. So I think if you're not really feeling that responsibility, then I kind of think, like, as a personal friend, that might be a little concerning. Like it is a big responsibility. And I think that if you don't feel how big of a decision that is, then you may not actually be emotionally ready for that decision. Because if you are going into the decision knowing how big of a challenge it is, how much of a responsibility it is, then at least you're making an informed decision and you understand the gravity of the decision that you're making. So there was like all of that. The other thing kind of playing, I think, at both like my decision as to like, okay, am I ready? But also other women that I talk to and still, have conversations with, is like at certain points, like there's like this ticking time bomb in the back of our brains that's like, okay, you have to have kids, like you're going to run out of time. And because I think that in our society now, so many people are waiting to have children so much later, that at a certain point that it's like, okay, if you have kids or if you become pregnant after these ages, based off of, medical research or like medical history and all of that, that it's like, okay, now you become high risk. And the challenge of, okay, well, I don't really want to have I don't really want to have a high risk pregnancy, or, like it could take a little bit longer for me to get pregnant, or, us to conceive. And so taking all of those other like time factors in mind too, and how many kids do you want to have, and how far apart do you want to have them? And even though you can make plans for some of these things, like life happens and you're just like, okay, there's so many variables as well that sometimes we feel pressured to just make a decision and move forward with like the next step in our life, even if we don't necessarily feel emotionally ready for all that that entails. And again, if you're not really, I think, feeling some kind of like level of like, wow, this is a really important decision and a really cautious decision, then maybe you're not really recognizing all of the things that are involved. So yeah, it does kind of concern me a little bit when people give this off this like perception of just like, oh yeah, having a baby is, the best thing in the world and there's nothing that can go wrong and it's going to be so easy. It's just like, okay, have you had any life experience? Like, I know that can be some people's experience, but I don't think it's the majority of people. So it just kind of concerns me when people have that outlook, that I'm wondering like, okay, if you run into challenges, like that's going to be a big wake up call for you. Like, I'd rather you be fully aware of all the decisions that you're making than you just like be completely blindsided, right? Now, this is not, of course, to deter anyone that like suddenly, finds themselves pregnant or ends up having a surprise pregnancy. Like, I think that being a parent is one of the greatest callings that God has placed on our life. And I do believe that every child is valuable and is sacred. And even if you didn't plan for that child to be there, God somehow planned for that child to be there and is going to give you the resources in some aspect of yourself to be able to take care of that child, even if that means that you give that child over to someone else because they are able to better, help provide for that child than what you can personally provide. Now, I know that's not the main situation of the whole context of our conversation, but I do just kind of want to throw that out there for other people that find themselves in that situation, because even though for us, for my personal family, we've decided we're done. We're not planning any more kids. There are still days where I think about oh my goodness, what if for some surprise happening, I end up pregnant? And how will I address that whole new situation? It's not new being a mom, but it would be new in this season of life, in, my current stage of life, and new completely variables. And would I be ready for that? And what would that all mean? And let's also touch a little bit on the whole timing of things, because you can plan to get pregnant relatively easily. And I think might be some of the reason why we feel so comfortable pushing things off now that we are having kids so much later in our life, that it seems much more common for couples to wait and for women to be older while they're pregnant. And I am so thankful for all of the medical advances that we have to be able to help support healthy pregnancies. But I think that too, that the longer that we wait, there's also this another level or layer of okay, maybe I am infertile. If you've never attempted to become pregnant, you don't know if there is some reason that you or your partner are not able to have kids because you've never attempted to have kids. And that's a little bit of where I found myself in my situation, which I know is not the whole context of our conversation today, but that was one of the reasons why I am glad that we started making attempts when we did, even though I still was wow, are we ready for this? Yeah, we have all of my, boxes checked of everything I wanted to accomplish, and just kind of makes sense that now's the time that we would start our family. But, I'm so thankful that we didn't wait, because it did take us longer to get pregnant, or me to get pregnant, than what we initially thought. I kind of referenced to earlier, I thought as soon as we pull the goalie, I would be pregnant and that would be that. And for anyone, not having ever contemplated that before, that could be a factor that determines how long it may take you to get pregnant. Now, I do think that people are more open to talking about their experience with infertility now. And I don't know if it's that we just never addressed it before because it wasn't a big issue, or if it was more one of those taboo topics that you don't talk about, you do not share, you keep it private and you don't tell anybody. Because I think that there could have also been a little bit of that too in previous generations. situations. So part of me wonders, like, is it just more prevalent now because people are more willing to talk about it, or is it that it always was at this level? Like, I don't know. It would be an interesting conversation, or like, research to delve into. But yeah, I think that if you have at any point like a desire to have kids, and you're just like, yeah, I want kids, and you're waiting for that moment to feel like, oh yes, I'm completely ready, I'm so, like, I feel so confident in my decision, that may never come. And I think that's why there's this saying of like, oh, if you wait till you're ready, you'll never have kids. Like, if you wait till you're financially ready, you'll never have kids. They kind of goes in both hands, of like the finances as well as like the emotional, what's the right word, the emotional maturity to have kids. Because there will always be something else financially to prepare for. There will always be another aspect of another situation that you're just like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Because like, even when I was pregnant with my firstborn son, and I was like waiting, like for me to go into labor, and I, like, still just like in that moment, just being like, wow, are we ready for this? I just think that it's a natural feeling, because you're facing something that you have never done before. You don't know if you have the skill or the ability. You know that you're going to face a lot of uncertainty. You know that you're going to face completely new challenges that you have never gone through. You don't feel that confidence in yourself to manage all of those little in and out and variable situations and all the nuances, because it's a completely different experience. And like, it's not a situation where like an entire new group of people go into that season with you. Like, when you go to college, all of your classmates, most likely, like the large majority of them anyway, are experiencing the same things together. So you feel some camaraderie with other people, like, oh, everyone else is experiencing the same thing. There's a large amount of people here that I can relate to, and I can feel validated that everything I'm feeling is fine and normal. Well, when you make that very personal decision of having a kid, there's no one else necessarily right alongside you going through the exact same experience as you, that are in the exact same situation and season of life that you are. Just like when you go to college, there's a lot of people around you experiencing the same things in the same season of life, at the exact same age as you, in the same major as you. Like, everything is so perfectly like pared down, and you can find a lot of relatability in that. Whereas like, when you enter into the decision to become a parent, you don't necessarily have someone walking around right alongside of you feeling the exact same things, even if they're not vocalizing it. I think can be really isolating. And that's why I think that this conversation is so important to have, because knowing, like, having other people in the past say like, oh, well, if you wait till you're ready, you'll never be ready. You have to have that assurance and have that knowledge within yourself to some degree that is greater than your doubts and your questions, that helps you move forward into making that decision. Because the one thing that hit heavy for me is like, once we make this decision, it's not like we're going back. It's not like you can just return a box of shoes. Like, this was something that we knew was going to change the rest of our life, and that should not be taken, that decision should not be taken lightly if it's a decision that you are consciously making. So yeah, I hope you found this conversation helpful. If you have another question on your own of a topic that we haven't kind of talked on, feel free to submit it to the link in the description below. You can do so anonymously, or you can just drop it in the comments and I'll respond there, and maybe even make it into a separate episode where we kind of discuss that topic in more detail. But if you enjoyed this conversation, I think you might enjoy this other conversation next. So hopefully we'll hang out again there.